This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry, Jane.
No, well, I should have recorded already. So welcome everybody. It's nice to see you all and look forward to working with you.
Jamie's going to be your contact all year round. If you guys ever have problems, we'll talk about where to go get help. But if you ever send an email out to Jamie or Robot Grant, it's Jamie's the woman behind that. She is our robot guru. I'm just covering the training because as of 5 minutes ago, she had a tennis match to attend for her daughter, and it got canceled because of the storm. We're a small team. There's only 4 of us. So the other 2 coworkers are Bree and Andy. You probably won't ever work with Bree, but Andy, you may. Andy's our volunteer and event coordinator. So 2 things that he might do for you is A, we're trying to find STEM mentors, which is a hard job, but we're going to try to take some of that load off of your plate. So we're trying to find STEM partners or mentors to help work with you during the school year. So Jamie, you might want to add that to the email follow-up that we send them. But if anyone is looking for volunteers to help support you this year, we can't promise it, but Andy works his hardest to try to find some STEM technical mentors to help support you during the school year. Whoa, I think I was leaning on the keyboard or something. That went through really, really fast. I don't know what I did. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's back up. Holy cow. All right, so the main objectives today, there's 3 objectives. And the purpose of today's meeting is to make sure that you guys walk away with more confidence than you came into this training. So there's 23 in the room right now. There's about 33 or so that signed up. The majority of everyone on this call are brand new, never coached a robotics team in elementary or middle school or even high school. But what we're going to cover today is to try to give you confidence and to make sure that when you're done with this today, you're going to say, you can do this. I can be a robotics coach. And some of you are saying, I don't know anything about robotics. I've never been to a robot competition. I don't understand what I'm doing. I'm really nervous. This is a really weird school year. It's the 2nd weird school year. And here I want to do robotics after school. What am I getting myself into? So what Jamie and I have done is put together just a 2-hour presentation on everything you need to know for your first year. And I call the first year is just survival, just what you need, the bare necessities of what you need to survive. There's so many facets to robotics, and eventually after your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th year, you'll get there. But right now you just want to get your team assembled, build a robot, and go to 1 competition. That's really what you need to focus on. So we're going to tell you that we're here to help all year. We're going to pass a lot of information on to you tonight, and we'll follow up with more information, and we'll have even further additional Q&A sessions. We've got additional advanced robot coaches training videos that you can watch through. There's gonna be so much information. Just know that if you ever get stumped, you don't know where to get help, ask us. That's what we're here for, okay? There are only, I think, 2 of you right now that received a grant from us. And this is just for those 2 that received our grant. Some of you received grants from us last year, but you were not able to compete due to COVID. So not all of what I'm about to say applies to all of you. But if you received a grant from us this year, this does apply to you. There's 10 or 8, 9, I can't remember. There's 9 requirements from our grant. You've already done 3 of them. So the first 3, they're check off the list. You don't even have to worry about it. But here are some things that you do need to do this year. If, and I highlighted in red, if COVID or your school allows because of COVID restrictions. So the first thing we want everyone to do is assemble a team of at least 3 students. You're going to hear from us today. It's going to be hard to whittle your team down to a manageable size. Most robot teams in elementary, middle, or high school are about 6 to 8 students. If you have more than that, you probably need to buy a 2nd robot and have a 2nd team, have 2 teams. But we want every team to be at least 3 kids or more. We want you to attend at least 1 competition. And a lot of people, they say the first year, I'm just going to test it out. I'm not going to go to a competition. No, I'm telling you, everyone, if you can, you need to go to a robot competition. Some other things, we want you to actively help recruit in your district. We want a robotics team at every school in the entire state. So if you can get the elementary, middle, and high schools in your district to apply for a grant, awesome. In fact, we'll even give you a $150 gift card to spend on robot parts if you help us do that. So please help encourage the other schools in your district or in your community to apply for a grant. And then really nothing other, really, I would say the last thing is number 9. It says pre and post surveys. Anyone that received a grant last year, you'll probably see this, or if you received a grant from us this year, you'll see we'll be sending here probably in September a pre-survey, and then we'll also be sending a post-survey probably in January, February. That's important data that we collect to see how robotics is impacting your students. And so please complete those surveys. In fact, Jamie sends out a $50 gift card to every teacher that completes the pre and post surveys when they receive our grant. So you get rewarded for you doing it and having your students complete those. All right, so I'm going to talk really fast because this is a 4-hour training that we have squeezed down to typically a 3-hour training, but in the fall, since most of our teachers are in school right now, we reduce it down to 2 hours to get you home for dinner. So we're taking a 4-hour training and cramming it into 2 hours. So I'm going to talk really fast. Jamie's going to be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions at all, you can ask Jamie in the chat. We're recording this training session. I sometimes don't like to tell you that because then you think you can just turn off your brain and not worry about it and look at the video later. But I'm telling you, in case you do have to run to the restroom or get more water, or you find out that I talk too fast and you can't hear me, you can always go back and check it out. But there are 2 assignments we're going to do right out of the gate. And I know some of you might say, I don't want to be your Facebook friend. I don't want to be your Facebook friend either. But I do want you to follow us on Facebook because Jamie is posting helpful things all the time. For example, she's about to host a parents open house for robotics parents just to show them what robotics is and how they can support you as a teacher in September. So that's something that you could start help recruiting. She finds grant dollars or YouTube videos or whatever it might be. We're looking at some in-classroom robot kits for your in-school, for all your students. All of that's posted on our Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, if you could right now, I see some of you are on your phones. Great. Grab out your phone right now, go onto Facebook and look us up, TPY Robots, and follow us. You have to like the page, and there's a lot of helpful information in there. The other thing is joining Coaches Corners. So for the elementary and middle school teachers in the room, you want to go to the Coaches Corner IQ, or the coaches, if you're at high school, you want to go to Coaches Corner VRC. This is probably the most useful resource throughout the entire year. These are all Indiana elementary and middle school coaches that just, it's the place to ask what you might refer to as stupid questions to get answers from other coaches in the state that are doing or have been where you are. So this is a great resource. It's a private group, so you have to join it, and then Jamie or I will accept you. So please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and join Coaches Corner. Jamie could probably even put the link in the chat for you. Second assignment, if you did not get an email from Jamie or you're having problems getting emails from our robot grant email address, that might mean that your school is blocking us. So if you haven't gotten our emails, or Jamie will be sending you probably an email tomorrow or Wednesday. So if you don't get an email by the end of the week as a follow-up to this training, you need to email your IT and let them know that robot grant at techpointyouth.org is being blocked, and they just need to somehow safely remove it from their firewall or whatever their IT little stuff they have to do behind the scenes that I don't know what they do exactly. So we just hear that some people don't get our emails, and we think that's why. All right, so I've already mentioned it. Jamie put it in the chat. She might have to do it again, Jamie, because if new people are here, but I'll click on it and show you. If you've never been to our website, techpointyouth.org, my entire like YouTube playlist of videos, Jamie's put together additional YouTube videos. Tonight's training video in PowerPoint is in there. So if you go to techpointyouth.org, STEM programs, robotics, you can check out, we have a lot of other content in here, but just robotics, and click on robot resources. At the very bottom of this, is the entire PowerPoint that I'm going over right now. So if there's hyperlinks, like you wanted to find where this coach's corner is, you can click on it directly from the PowerPoint on our website right now. You can't click on it on the screen that I'm sharing with you because that's GoToMeeting. Even though it looks like a hyperlink, that's just a screen. That'd be like trying to touch a hyperlink on your TV, which, man, I don't know, maybe you can do that with some TVs. All right. I also tell a lot of funny, corny dad jokes, so you'll be hearing those tonight as well. All right, so now I got that all underway. Now we're diving into the actual training. So this is where the learning goes on. That was just like housekeeping items. Now we're talking about robots. So some introduction things that you need to know are kind of vocabulary names are who is VEX, RAC, and TechPoint Foundation for You. Those are 3 groups that you'll talk with throughout the year. And I need to explain who they are so that you know who to talk to when you have a question. So VEX is like Lego. They sell parts. So we're going to buy you, if you got one of our grants or you got one last year, we bought you already a VEX robot kit. So if you go to vex.com, you could buy more parts. If a part breaks or you want to buy more or a second kit, you go to VEX's website. They sell plastic parts for VEX IQ or metal parts for VRC. They are the sales. REC is like the NFL for robotics. They make a new robot game every year. We'll talk about the IQ game tonight. They're the ones that come up with the rule book and kind of regulate the competitions. And when you register your team, you're doing it on Robot Events, which is REC's website. And then thirdly, that's who Jamie and I work for, is TechPoint Foundation for Youth. Those are the 4 pretty faces we showed you early in the beginning. We are just a nonprofit here in Indiana. VEX and REC are in Texas. We're in Indiana, and we just want to make sure that you feel supported. So we are the ones that found the funding to buy all these kits. We're the ones that put on the training. And throughout the year, if you have questions about being a coach or you have problems, let us know. We'll help support you. In fact, there'll be a PowerPoint slide tonight that shows you, I think, 8 or 9 different ways to get help. And Jamie's, I think, number 8 or 9 on that list. So we're at the bottom of the list. We want you to ask the other people questions before you get to us, but we are going to be a very important resource throughout the year. Again, ask questions in the chat. Jamie's there answering anything. I probably won't stop too much for questions unless Jamie finds it's really important, and she'll unmute herself and ask. Another thing I'd like to see is if you're sitting in front of a computer with a webcam, I'd love to see your face so I know that you're paying attention. Because then I get self-conscious that I'm talking to myself, which I could do all night, but I'd like to see your faces, make sure that I have like a, a check for understanding, a nod, or a blank stare, like I don't know what I'm talking about, I can go over it. So if you, there we go, thank you, Beth. Rest of you, hey, thanks, Brian. Thank you for turning on your cameras. If you guys are adults, if you guys need to step away to go to the restroom or something, you guys can do that. Don't take the camera with you, obviously. All right, sorry, no webcam. Good excuse, John, but I'll let it pass. All right, here we go. Oh, I guess I could show you this. You will see an email from time to time once you register your team from REC, Randy Decker, who's the regional support manager. He works for the NFL of Robotics, REC Foundation, and he's your regional support manager. He goes to a lot of the robot competitions, so you might even see him at events. But anyway, you'll see emails from Randy. He's good people. You want to make sure that you, if you have questions related to the game or registering a team or registering for competition, he is your guy. All right. So as I said, there's a group of elementary, middle, and high school people in tonight's training. If you're in elementary and middle school, you're competing with what's called VEX IQ. And that's the robot on the left side that looks plastic. If you're competing in high school, that's the right side, that's VEX VRC. Now, one confusing thing is middle school does both plastic and metal robots, but tonight we're only going to, and we only give out grants to high schools for VRC. We combined IQ and VRC, elementary, middle, and high school, all in the same room and training because the first hour of training applies to anyone that wants to coach robotics. And then after the second hour of training tonight, about 5 o'clock, I'll start talking about specifically the VEX IQ game and competitions. And I think some of you guys have already spoken to Jamie about the training session today. She can answer questions about that. But for those of you in the middle school that maybe have high school students as well, maybe you coach in an intermediate school that has 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, you are someone that could actually compete in both IQ and VRC. Or if you're an elementary teacher that's a 5th grader that also teaches 6th grader, you could do elementary and middle, and you could do 2 robotic grants. And again, we have the grants that you could apply that buys you the equipment. So Jamie can answer any questions that you might have about elementary and middle school grants or high school. But you can see the cost differences. You know, robot kit's about $400. A VRC, robot IQ kit's $400. A VRC kit is $1,000. But this is part of the grant. We buy that for at least your first team. All right, and then and this is what the kit looks like, and this is what the field looks like. So we'll dive into this a little bit more, but just to give you an overview, the field is 8 foot by 6 foot, and this inside is the game that REC comes up with every year that I was talking about. We'll go into the details on how this game works. This is your VEX IQ Super Kit. This is the one that's $379. This is an example of what a robot looks like. For VRC, this field is 12 foot by 12 foot. This has got 2 robots, a red alliance, against 2 robots, a blue alliance, and they try to score points in the center here. Whereas IQ is just a robot and a robot, 2 robots, and they play together, and their total score is a combination of their points together. So anyway, if you're an elementary teacher, middle school teacher, you are doing this top one. If you're a high school teacher, you're going to be doing the bottom one. So anyway, that's just kind of an overview, more of an FYI. All right, this is important for everyone, elementary through high school. This is the calendar of how it works. And I know that, my gosh, we're already almost into September. It's unbelievable. But the season that I usually say, you guys aren't behind if you haven't done anything. That's okay, because the season typically starts in September and it ends after your first competition. Your first competition might be in October, November, December, January, or February. That's when local competitions are. The state championship is intended to be on March 12th at Lucas Oil Stadium. Fingers crossed we can do it in person. The world championship is in Dallas in April, and then the season's done after Worlds. It's not unlikely that some of you, as your first year, might make it to state and the world championship. I know it sounds crazy. We're not going to talk about that a lot today. You're going to even see a slide today in the presentation where I say, I don't want you to try to get to state or world because you shouldn't care about winning at this point. What is the key word? Let's see in the chat. I said today you want to learn just how to, it starts with an S. What is the word? You want to serve. Just someone type it quick so I can move on. Survive. There we go. I feel like I should sing a song. You just want to survive. And this is kind of the schedule in order for you to survive. It's in the month of September. You're going to start forming your team, hosting a call out of students, going over what their roles are, kind of coming up with a schedule. And then October is when you're going to start seeing competitions pop up. Now, a lot of schools are impacted by COVID restrictions this year. In a typical year, there are about 130, 140 competitions, and there's one event within an hour of every robot team in the state of Indiana. Last time we checked, there's about 30 competitions this year. So it's not looking great. We're hoping that they increase. We're doing our best to try to get more competitions near you. So we'll talk about that. There's a video that shows you how to find a local competition, how to sign up for a competition. That's one thing that the grant doesn't include. And competitions cost about $40. So that's something you'll have to pay for. And the good thing is that money goes actually to the team that hosts the event. So if you ever want to host a competition, you can actually make money as a fundraiser if you host an event. And Jamie was a recipient of our grant several years ago. She was an elementary and middle school robotics coach, and she hosted an event. Probably why she got the job, because she's an all-star robotics woman. And now she's our TPY Foundation for Youth Director of Programs. So She'll be having additional trainings throughout the year about how to host an events. I think Randy, Jamie, and I will be doing that, so if that's something you're interested in. But anyway, forming your team in September, having practice in October, November. I would say for a first-year team, try to get one competition in by December if you can. If you live in the Indianapolis, Central Indiana, you might have a lot of options. If you live in Peru, Indiana, or Madison, Indiana, I just picked two random small towns that I have family that live in. You might not have a lot of options. So you might not get to pick one in December and one in January, February. But I would encourage you to try to go to two competitions if you can this year. After your first or second competition, if you don't make it to state, your season's kind of done, unless you want to continue to have practices. But if you make it to state, your season goes on all the way until March. If at state you don't make it to Worlds, then your season's done after state. But if you make it to Worlds, your season's done in April. So it kind of depends on how far you progress throughout the season. If you go to one competition in December and you're done, your season's done in December. So if you have any questions about that, shoot it in the chat. Jamie is there for you. All right, here's what tonight's going to look like. We're going to first talk about why robotics matters, because if you received a grant from us, you signed up to come to our training, we want to make sure that you understand the value of robotics before we just hand you a kit of parts and say, go figure this out. So Jamie and I are very passionate about why robotics is important for kids. We want to make sure that you understand the value of that. It's not just about scoring points and getting trophies. We want to make sure that every Indiana coach has an idea that robotics can be a very, very life-changing program for your students. So we're going to really spend a lot of time on that. Then we're going to talk about how to coach a robotics team, what the game looks like, which is probably the most fun, and what a competition looks like. Tonight, we're not going to spend much time on your robot kit. So if you don't have a robot kit in front of you, that's okay. I'm going to leave you with a video that goes over the entire unpackaging and boxing of a robot kit. And you're going to hear me say over and over tonight, you don't need to know how the parts in that robot kit work. Your kids do. So you're going to be more of a moderator. You're going to be more of a advisor. You're not going to be a doer of building robot parts and programming them. Now, if you want to do that on your free time at home and then give it back to your kids, that's one thing, but you shouldn't be doing that during the season. So I always say if the season's not starting until September, you have a couple days to play with your robot at home and making a rover bot that cleans your kitchen of sorts, and then you have to give it back to the kiddos when the season starts. All right. What is robotics and why it matters? So I have a little question I want you guys to put in the chat here, or a little answer. Sorry, I have a question I'd like to hear your answer for in the chat. Why are you choosing to start a robotics team? Short and sweet in the chat. Let's just hear a pour in. Why are you choosing to start a robotics team? You can be honest and say your principal made you. You can be honest to say, I drew the short straw and it was between me and the science teacher and I lost. Or you could say something else. So why are you joining robotics? Awesome, Ryan. Nice. New school. I like all caps, amazing. Our students were asking for it. That's great. My son has a passion. I want him to be able to have a club to challenge high abilities. Love it. We don't have a team for our middle school. Awesome, Randy. No, that's great. I helped coach and love it. We didn't have a team for middle school. Awesome. So, I have been doing robotics since 1999. I was a student of robotics, and it inspired me to go to Purdue to study electrical engineering. When I was at Purdue, I learned I liked working with kids, and I got a job where I actually got to teach digital electronics, which I went to college to study for, and I was a robotics coach all 10 years I was a teacher. I have seen as a student the power robotics has to help really make, I think, inspire students to figure out what they want to do after high school. And I've seen as a teacher transform two different populations of students, those that are unattached from the classroom, don't enjoy school, don't turn in their homework or ask questions. those students thrive in robotics. I've also seen students that are high achieving, and someone said high ability students. They need to be challenged. Those students are great for robotics. So this next little graph, oops, I guess I goofed up. We're not on that slide yet. JV, my bad. This is a neat little slide that basically explains why robotics and why what we're doing with robotics to try to get it in every school in the state, and why we're having state at the Lucas Oil Stadium, our state championships at Lucas Oil Stadium, is because we want to elevate robotics at the same level as athletics. We think robotics is just as important. I'm not saying it's more important. I could argue that it is, but we're trying to elevate robotics at the same level as athletics. And right now, when we talk about engineering or programming, you think about these types of people. And one thing that these all have in common are they're all male men, and they're typically white. And our nonprofit is trying to show the girls out there that you can do this, and robotics is a way to give those young girls a lot of confidence. There's also a lot of non-white students that don't pursue STEM because they don't think that they're good at math and science. And the nice thing is robotics is not like a traditional test. There's not going to be a homework assignment. There's not quizzes or vocabulary words you have to memorize. So if they don't do well in math, if they have an aptitude of building or problem solving or working together, they might be great for robotics. So we're trying to disprove the myth that if you want to become an engineer, you're going to look like one of these people. I'd like to see in the chat what you think engineers do. What do engineers do? All sorts of kinds of engineers. What do they do? Heather knows the answer. Let's skip Heather's answer. Design and build. Thank you, Ryan. Solve problems. Problem solve. Oh gosh, this is a sharp group of teachers on this call. Create new products to solve problems. Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. Typical design, create, solve problems. Engineers typically, the answers I typically get is they build things, they construct things, they blow things up, they reverse engineer, they try to create new product and designs. And right out of the gate, Heather said they solve problems. A lot of you guys had a very similar answer. I like to ask this question to my students because engineers solve problems, and that's all robotic competitions are about. You're going to get a new game, and they have to use the parts in front of them, the robot kit, to solve the problem, scoring points, in a very condensed amount of time. Your build season and in a competition, you only get 1 minute to score as many points as you can with a team, just like in real life. And so just the real life applications of robotics is just so profound. I haven't seen it anywhere else. I was a technology education teacher for high school. I had taught an elective class, meaning students chose to take my class. I taught 12 different subjects, but I've never seen anything as engaging and impactful in all of my different classes that I taught than robotics. And robotics wasn't in the class, it was an after school activity. So I always say, what do engineers do? Students need to know that they solve problems, and then constantly throughout the year, when you have a problem with your robot, the team and the students come up to you and say, Miss Johnson, my robot broke, can you help me fix it? And you say, no. Engineers solve problems. Go figure out how to fix it. Because during a competition, when that robot breaks, they can't come to you to fix it, they have to fix it. So anyway, another type of stereotype that we're trying to break down is right now, students glamorize these types of people, YouTubers, musicians, athletes, because this is what they see on TV. This is what sells jerseys or music, or you see all the ads on your phone on YouTube. And I don't even know who PewDiePie is. I've heard of him. I don't even know who he is. But our students, if we ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? They say a video game designer or a YouTuber. But do they know how to do those things? Do they know how to program? Do they understand the technology behind them? And then some things that we don't glamorize are, did you guys know that Ada Lovelace is known for the first programmer? She wasn't necessarily a computer programmer because they didn't exist then, but she's known for creating the first program because she was a mathematician that's creating this counting machine. Have you guys actually ever seen the founders of Google's, Larry and Sergey? A lot of people don't even know what they look like. And now Tesla's becoming a little more popular, but do most of us know that he is known for alternating current, which we all are probably experiencing problems with right now because of the storm. So we want to glamorize these people, but they are not positioned in a way to be fun and exciting to watch. You don't go to Lucas Oil Stadium to watch Anna Lovelace work out a math problem. Like, how boring would that be? But to watch a robot competition, a kids competing on a robot they built on front of the stage with cheering and loud music and fans screaming for the robot to score points so that they can do better and make it to the world championship, now that has a lot of excitement and fun in it. And if you've never been to a robot competition, I describe it, it's like going to a homecoming football game, but you're cheering on a robot and your drivers. It's incredible. So this is who we want to glamorize. This is who we want our students to grow up to become and to kind of pursue these types of careers. Not that there's anything wrong with these people, but I think we can do better. So, types of students robotics attracts. This is kind of the slide thought I was on a while back, so I'm catching up now. I had a very large team and a very diverse group of students, and this is something that I think that you should open your mind to when you form your team. As I said, the kit that you started with, you have one kit and you're just going to do one team this year. 6 to 8 students is your max. 8's on the high end, 6 is probably ideal. I don't like 3. I know I said minimum 3. I don't like 3. I think you want to have a team so they learn how to work together, kind of like a business, a small business. But when you think about the types of students, you don't want to have a school-wide announcement to say, come to my classroom after class today, or after school today to join the robotics team, because you'll have 150 kids trying to join your team and you need to come up with 6. So I would think about the students that are in your class right now, or maybe in a classroom adjacent to you. So if you're a 4th grade teacher, think about your students and maybe 3rd grade students, so that when those 3rd graders come into your class next year as 4th grades, they'll have some robot experience. So kind of like a rebuild instead of reload every year. So think about your grade and the one before you and recruiting some students that both love school, but maybe socially struggle. So a lot of people think on the right column, these are the students that love school. These are probably the kids that you want to hang out with after school. And maybe you don't want to hang out with these kids over here. I said it, you didn't. Maybe you're thinking it. But these are the types of students I think it transforms. I think robotics does a nice job of bringing these kids in to show them that learning can be cool, especially when you pair them up with students that are on this side of the spectrum. So anyway, something to think about. And recruiting robotics teams is a pretty hot topic on the Facebook Coaches Corner. So that's something that you can take a look at to see what people talk about and how they have applications and different resources on recruiting. Jamie will send along, she has kind of a package on how she does her recruiting. So anyway, something to think about. And just another point to drive home, Jamie made this graphic recently and just updated on the website and she included on it. So this is the first time I'm talking about it, is a lot of people think about robotics is they're building a robot. And I'll talk to donors sometimes to say, you want to support robotics because it is creating 2 things: the talent pipeline of students that you want to hire and the diversity, because DEI right now is so hot in companies. It's something we've been doing for 20 years, but they want to get more women on their companies and non-white students on their companies, but they're not doing much about it in the K through 12 space. And so what I usually say is, they'll say, why do I want to work with a bunch of kids that know how to build robots? We build websites. And I say, it doesn't matter. The whole robot is not the whole end game. What the kids are learning, they're learning mechanical, technical, building, and programming. Those are the obvious things. What I think they're really, really building is how to think critically, how to communicate effectively, how to be creative and creating a unique solution that's in their head, and how to collaborate with the team. These 4 things, I say, can hire and employ any student that knows how to do these 4 things well. Yes, if they know how to build something, but they don't know how to communicate their idea to the rest of the team, and then the team's not going to build it. And if you have a programmer that can't communicate to the driver on what they created and how they programmed it and how it works on the remote control, then that driver's never going to be able to drive it properly, and they're not going to score points. So these skills over here on the right, I think, are just so essential, and they're so hireable. And that's what we're trying to do. Jamie and I are trying to create a talented pipeline in the workforce of getting K through 12 students you guys work with every day, and we're trying to make sure that they have opportunities and when they're done with their high school career. Jamie found this. I thought this was kind of neat. She just pulled this from Google's website of how to get a job at Google. I thought that these were just really neat things. And at the very bottom, it says expertise. This is listed as least important because thinking you already know the answer can actually keep you from exploring new options. What Google's looking for is people that can process on the fly, leadership, people that say, I don't know, but are able to step back and embrace better ideas and work with other people. Ownership, understanding an organization's problem is your own problem and working together to solve it. Everything, all four of those bullet points is robotics. And that's why I think that every company I speak with, when they have a chance to talk with your students at a robot competition, every time they walk away, they say to me, gosh, I want to hire these students right now. And they'll be first or second graders that you work with from your program. So, and it's just a neat idea. This is more braggable and a thanks to all of you. We got involved with the state robotics initiative, helping start robotics team in every school in the state in Indiana back in 2016-17. So this was before we started. There were only 311 schools, and they were all in the state. They were only in the city of Indianapolis, concentrating here in the center. And Mayor Ballard had a citywide initiative. I believe it may have been part of your homework to kind of watch that video. If you got our grant last year, you may have watched that video last year. And this is what Mayor Ballard did in the state. Fast forward to 6 years. This is what Jamie, Bree, Andy, and I have done, is help start 2100 teams. So I want to say thank you for becoming a little blue dot on our map that builds this huge culture of STEM education and finding that robotics is just as important as sports and as an after-school activity. We're going to support it and make sure that our kids are prepared for the real world when they graduate. This is incredible. In fact, we have more elementary and middle school robotics teams than any other state in the entire country. More than California, which is second, more than Texas, which is third, more than Florida, which is fourth, and not even close. California only has about 950 elementary and middle school robotics teams. So we have incredible growth. So I want to say thank you for being a robotics coach. And this is, I was wrong. I thought it was 130 last year or 2 years ago, pre-COVID. We had 167 robot competitions all over the state. And as I said, every team that was on here had access to a robot competition within an hour away. But Jamie, I mean, last time I checked, it was about 30. I don't know if that sounds accurate. You can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but she gave me a thumbs up. It's only about 30 competitions that have currently been posted in robot events. I think that'll grow all the way until October. So don't stress out if you don't see one in your area. I would wait until about October, mid-October before you start stressing out. But please talk to us, talk to Randy if there's not one in your area, and we can see what we can do. All right, so that was just about robots. And I think I'm staying pretty good on track because I wanted to be done with that at quarter till, and it is 4:44. Jamie, I cut out all the stories and I made it, so we're gonna keep on track. Jamie, are there any questions I need to answer in the chat? Are we doing good? Coaches, are you guys doing good right now?
We're doing great. I'm answering questions as they come up, so you're doing great.
Awesome. So next topic, we're just going to talk about coaching robotics. So this is for elementary, middle, and high school. And you might think to yourself, I'm a middle school teacher. Isn't my coaching kind of ethics going to be a little bit different than elementary or high school? And I'm like, no, they're not. I coached elementary, I coached middle, and I coached high school. And my philosophy and everything I did for all those kids was exactly the same. It was just the way I may have communicated instructions was a little bit different. So obviously I couldn't use the same words for high school to elementary kids. It was all the same. So what you'll see here is a combination of Jamie, me, and a lot of robot coaches in the state of Indiana looking at giving input on how to coach your team. So here's the kind of 5 suggestions for your very first year when you say, after this practice, after I'm done and you're about to start your first practice, you're like, where do I start? What do I do? Here's what I'm going to suggest. In fact, there's going to be a schedule that walks you through what to do at your first practice, your second practice, your third practice, and so forth. But just 5 major concepts of your season is build the basic robot. So I'm going to show you the difference between the IQ bot and the V5 bot. It's kind of wild. The high school bot's usually more complicated, and it's ridiculously easy this year. So IQ, elementary, middle school, you guys have a pretty complex robot this year. But I'm going to start with IQ. Every year they build, and you can see the whole gallery of other robots, they build a new robot to play the current game. So you can kind of see here's the 2021-22, this is the 2021, this is the 1920, so we're in 2021. It's called Flame. I've been told this is the most complicated, difficult robot ever built in these last, you can see it goes all the way to 17, 18. So this robot is pretty complex. It takes a while. Gosh, Jamie, my wife's internet over here in her office is so much faster than mine. I feel like she's sucking all the internet up from me. But if you guys have ever put anything together with like Legos, they have the little step-by-step instructions. That's exactly how this works. It's just a little bit more complicated. So you've got these plastic parts, you've got some axles, you fit through the hole that's over 1, 2, 3, you move it over. Now, these instructions are online, so if you have iPads, it's a great way to do it. If you have an overhead projector, that's another good way, or you can print it, or if they have Chromebooks or one-to-one devices, they could do it on there. Unfortunately, this is a 67-page document, so I don't know if printing is a really kind of an eco-friendly solution. But anyway, that's where you want to get started. V5, it's Moby this year. This is what I was saying. In comparison to previous years, it's a very simple robot. It's a drive base with 2 little flaps for flipping this disc in the game. So anyway, very simple robot for high school. I think this robot's going to take you about 3 to 4 practices to build. I think this robot would take you about 1 to 2 practices to build for high school. So that's where you want to start. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to try to make this as clear as possible, but every single year, I don't know why this is. I get people that show up to the competition with the basic robot. So I'm going to say this very clearly. Have your students build the basic robot. If your IQ is Fling, if it's VRC, it's Moby. But this is the most important part. Have your students improve the design. Do not go to the competition with the basic robot. You want the kids to engineer a better solution. Those basic bots are okay at best. You want the kids to figure out what breaks, what could be improved, what could be better. And that's what they want to do. And I'll tell you, you need to tell them this, as they modify, improve their design, it's not going to work the first time. That's what I say is have students prototype maybe off to the side. We will buy you, and there's going to be a slide here. We buy you an entire kit that can build Fling, or for VRC that can build Moby, but you'll have a plenty of extra parts off to the side for your kiddos to try building other prototypes. So like another arm that's stronger, or maybe a little grabber that holds on to the balls better. Whatever it might be, they could prototype off the side and then take off and put on different prototypes to test and see what works best. That's where the fun happens. I see so many coaches just let their kiddos follow the instructions, build the robot, and that's it. They're too scared to make any modifications. If you're trying to win state or the world championship, that might be your strategy. Oh, we got a robot that works. Let's just be safe, play it by ear, or play it safe this year to try to make it to state. No. I want you to make your own design after they have built and seen something that works to make it better. Try not to start over. So they might have this whole crazy idea and they want to completely strip it down to nothing and start over. I usually tell students not to strip it down past the drive phase, which is, there'll be a picture I'll show you here in a second. Then practice, practice, practice driving. There's going to be a slide that shows that driving is equally as important as the design. So the kids that drive need to understand how to drive that, manipulate it, and move it, just like a video game. They need to have this muscle memory of how the joysticks, and the joysticks look just like a video game that they're used to using. All right, let's get some interaction to see if we've fallen asleep yet. It looks like Jamie's awake and Ryan's awake and Sister Jacqueline's awake. Awesome, thank you. How will you measure success? In the chat, if you could tell me, at the end of the year in May, and you look back, how do you think you'll be successful? How will you be able to measure? You survived. That's the key word. No one can repeat that now. Thanks, Aaron. That's exactly right. You survived. Students had fun. Gosh dang it, Jamie, if their students have fun, you are doing something right. Kids had fun and learned. Awesome. Kids don't want to stop. Oh my gosh, John, that's going to be one of the hardest things, is telling the kids, you got to go, get out of my room. It's 9 o'clock, guys. I need to get home. Kids love robotics. They had fun. Students know more about robotics than they did when they walked in. Exactly. They're already looking forward to next season. Oh my gosh, that's so fun, because they're going to reveal next year's game in April at the World Championship. It's so much fun because the kiddos start already brainstorming, thinking about next year. That's why recruiting kids from the previous year is good. So you 5th graders, get some 4th graders on your team. You 7th graders, get some 6th graders on the team. Students learn about robots and learn to work with everyone. Kids are excited. Yes, yes, all good answers. I'm glad no one said, and I wouldn't call you, I probably would call you, that you said you made it to state or you made it to Worlds. I'm competitive. I think I just started working with Jamie, and I've only got to meet with her maybe 10 times in person. I think Jamie's competitive. She won state when she was a middle school intermediate teacher. So I know she has a competitive bone in you. How many of you guys are competitive? Sister Jacqueline, you look competitive. Aaron, are you competitive? Deb says she's competitive. So I want you guys to reserve your competitiveness for your second year. Your first year is survive. Get your kids to build a robot. Get your kids to a competition, maybe 2. That is your goal, and everything that was listed there. Make sure your kids have fun. Make sure they learn something. Make sure they work together. Managing personalities will probably be one of your #1 jobs. Just making sure kids are not arguing, fighting, because if you have 8 kids on your team, you might have 8 opinions on what that robot might look like. So you have to manage that. So we like to put this slide on here that we don't care about trophies, and neither should you for your first year. Your second, third year, you can start worrying a little bit more, but you don't want to go into your first year about, how do I win the design award? How do I win the excellence award? How do I get to state? That's okay, don't worry about that right now. And I'm telling you, as the president and CEO of Tech One Foundation for you, please don't worry about this. Failing is okay when you learn from your mistakes. This is probably one of the most important lessons. I know I learned it as a teacher. I learned it, it took me so long to learn as a student. But I don't want to go in the whole philosophy about testing and you know, all the anxiety around it, and then putting a grade and you failed and it means you're a failure. No, learn from your mistakes. In robotics, you're going to do that every day in practice. Learn from your mistakes. So it's such a valuable thing. I want to make sure that when your robot breaks the first time, or they have a new design they've been working on and it doesn't come together the way they thought, pause, practice, and talk about failure and how to overcome failure and what we can learn to do better. Student run, student built, adult organized. I want you all to make sure you have some support at your school. That means that's an assistant coach. That's another teacher. That might be a husband or a wife. It might be another kid. If you're an elementary and you have a middle school kid, have your middle school kid be an assistant coach too. They would love to be a middle school coach. Like, tell them you're a coach. Give them responsibilities. But you want some support, but you need to tell your support up front that this is a student-run team. You are going to go to competitions and see some robots that you'll say, no way do kids build that. 98% of the time, That was built by kids. 2% of the time, there's some turds out there that did not build it, and that stinks. The parents built it, or an adult built it. REC does a really good job, the best they can, to make sure that that doesn't happen. You can report it to Randy if you see it, but only if you see the adults building or working on it. I'm really serious. You're going to see some impressive robots that look like transformers that just unfold and do all these things. You're going to say, no way did a kid build that. I'm telling you, a lot of the times, 98% of the time, and I made up that number, I'm sure it's pretty darn accurate, the kids built that. And so that's the philosophy you guys need to make sure you guys go into. The first robot competition you guys go to, you're going to get your butts kicked. You're not going to do very well. Now, some of you might prove me wrong, in your first event you get state, and at state you make it to world. Happens every year because we're training like 100 teachers this year. So the odds are in your favor that at least one of you are going to make it to state, if not more. No mom and dad bots. So don't let the parents take it home to let Johnny work on it without the rest of the team. Because what we have found is sometimes mom and dad work on it. Oh, we took it home in pieces and now it's scoring every single point in 30 seconds. Oh, and dad works for Rolls-Royce. That's interesting. So please be careful. Make sure it's a parent or it's a student built robot. If you have parents, set those expectations up front. You don't need to have all the answers. One of our biggest nervous concern as a teacher is we always think we need to have the answer, the right answer, as soon as a kid asks it. And I had a very, very learnable moment that my very first year, my department head made me become an automotive teacher in addition to electronics. And I didn't know a thing about cars. I changed a tire and knew how to check the oil. And I had to teach an automotive class. Talk about not having the answers and then just having to suck up the pride of, you know what, I don't know, but let's find out. And I learned how to communicate and work about learning together with the kids. So that's something you're going to have to suck up your pride. You're not going to have all the answers. In fact, your kids should and will know more about that robot than you and how to program it more than you. That's okay. That is okay. All right, this is more of an emotional curve of stress. So this probably needs to be adjusted because of COVID, because we all know in the summer we were not just smooth sailing. But in a normal year, if you guys remember the summer, you're sitting by the pool, sipping on some margaritas maybe, and just enjoying the summer. This year's a little different, so I think your stress level is probably up here. Then you get awarded the grant, or you got it last year, and you're like, what did I just get myself into? Hopefully at the end of training, you're like, I got this. During the build season, this will be fun, but your stress will increase. Pre-competition, there might be a oh darn or another 4-letter word. I don't know what that might be, but you might be like in trouble. You feel like you're in trouble, and then this is right before a competition. So here's your first competition. Right before a competition, I get calls starting in October, November from our new teachers saying, hey, George, I just want to let you know we got a competition this Saturday. It's Thursday, and we're not going to the competition. And I go, why? And they go, our robot's just no good. And now I'll ask one question. I'll say, does your robot move? And they say, yes. I go, you're going to that competition. If your robot moves this year, whether you're elementary, middle, or high school, you can compete and score points. So you have to get your robot to move and get to a competition. And then once you go there, your mind is going to be opened up to the possibilities. Your kids are going to absorb so much. They're going to say, oh my gosh, look at that robot. They're going to take pictures and videos, and they're going to want to go back to the drawing board, and they're going to go, when's the next competition? That's why you need to do 2. So this is, what did I get myself into? This is you walking into the doors of your first competition. We'll talk about that here in a second. But let me just trust me, all of us, once you get past your first competition, you're like, this is fun. This is why I do this. This is amazing once you get to here. And then after your first year, you'll be robot masters, and you could maybe teach the class. Heck, in a year or 2, Jamie's going to need a robot assistant. Maybe we'll hire one of you to be our robot assistant because you'll be a robot master. So you're all going to get here. This is probably after your first or second competition. But I'm telling you, even of 20 years of robot coaching experience, I always get stressed right before a competition. I never think we have enough time, but you're going to get through it. If your robot moves, just remember, if your robot moves, you're going to a competition. You might be in last place. That's fine. You're going to a competition. All right. Remember I said there's 8 ways to get help, and we're number 8 on the list. It's not that we don't want to help you. There's just a lot of resources out there. So I'm going to throw a bunch of resources. I am over my time because at 5 I wanted to start talking about the game. I'm going to go quickly here so I have time to show you guys the game. But where can you get help? REC has a website of a lot of really good information on there. So check out roboteducation.org. I already told you guys about the Facebook Coaches Corner group, but there's also a worldwide forum called Bex IQ Forum, or if you're doing BRC, it's just called Bex Forum or Bex BRC Forum. I don't remember, but that's the worldwide forum. So some people as first-year coaches, they feel intimidated talking to people all over the world, so they prefer the Coaches Corner. Jamie and I are in this actually in the period of reorganizing our robot resources page. So this is really helpful right now, but it will be extremely more helpful in what, 2 weeks, Jamie, we'll get it, maybe 3. So we'll say September. This is going to be revamped. You'll see so many other resources out here, and we'll post in Coach's Corner when it is done. STEM mentor and assistant coach. I've already mentioned this. You guys want to get an assistant coach to help you. Jamie will include in the post homework assignment a link for you to request a mentor or a STEM mentor. Jamie, if that's not in there already, if you wouldn't add it. But that's what Andy will try to help you guys do, is find a mentor in your community to be a coach, to assistant coach. Okay, you want this. This is going to help your survival rate if you have someone helping you. If you're by yourself, that's okay. It's just a little more stress. I coached all by myself for several years, and I had 120 kids on my team. That was extremely stressful. It's possible it's why I'm not coaching robotics anymore and I'm working for a nonprofit. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're overseeing a large group of kids alone, not having any kind of support or assistance when you need it. This might sound weird in an athletic community, but in robotics, talking to your neighboring schools should be a good experience. What I mean by that is some schools will be open arms and say, come to my practice. Let me go to your practice. Let's do a scrimmage. Let's work together. There is a few not so friendly coaches out there that are a little bit more athletic competition-isk in the sense that they hold their cards very close. They say, I don't want you to see our robot. Some will say, oh, you want to see my robot? Let me show you how it works, and I could help you with your robot. So reach out to your other schools or ask Jamie, and she can tell you who the other schools in your neighborhood are to get connected with. Think about the ones in your district. And then Randy Decker. And then if you have Bex part questions, like your battery doesn't work anymore, a motor doesn't work, you can call this number or email support@bex.com. And then if none of this works, then you can email Jamie at Robot Grant or Jamie at tech.org. So those are the 8 steps to get help. Additional resources for those of you who love training. You're like, I'm just loving everything George is talking about. I wish there was more of this. We have YouTube links about beginners coaching, advanced coaching, years of about programming and fundraising and more details than you need to know your first year. And then if you even like more training, there's an education certificate you could get that REC put together for IQ coaches and BRC coaches. And you can go through it, you actually get a certificate that you can print off and put on your refrigerator, and you can show off to your spouse or whomever you live with, or your students. Look, I'm a certified coach. All right, I mentioned earlier about a robot practice. So this is something Jamie and I put together. I would say for the little ones, you're looking at about an hour and a half practice. High school, you could probably get away with a 2-hour practice. Little ones, and I mean like 1st through 3rd or 4th grade, an hour almost is not enough time, because by the time you get the robot parts out, you have a meaningful practice and then have to clean up. It's not enough time to do much. So that's why we say about an hour and a half. And then 2 hours might be too long for the little ones after school. But I bet once they get into the 8th, 9th, 10th week right before a competition, they're going to say, we need to do 3 or 4 practices a day or a week. It's just kind of funny as we get closer to a competition, the pressure grows. This is just an example of what to do. You don't have to follow. This will just give you some guidance. This is the formula that I followed. As my first meeting, we just talked about the game, the rules, and how to score, and then we kind of assigned some positions. So you want to be a programmer, you're on the side of a program. You want to build the field, you build the field. You want to build a robot, great. You want to just start looking on YouTube at other robot designs, our research and design group, great. And then that's their jobs for at least a couple meetings, and then we can talk about maybe rearranging those structures or leaving those team assignments. And then the second practice is when we start building the robot. So first one's like, how does the game work, the scoring, then we start building the robot. For IQ, as I said, this could be 3, 4, maybe 5 meetings. It's a complex robot this year. BRC, I think you can get it done in like 2 practices. And then after you build your basic robot, drive it around, allow everyone to drive it, see its limitations, and then you want to redesign it. We talked about this. You don't want to be using the same robot. So redesign it, and then I want you to test it, redesign, test it, redesign, practice, practice, practice driving. So it's just kind of a repetitive process. It's called a design process. You want to brainstorm, prototype, test, find out what doesn't work, redesign, and then restart all over. All right, well, this doesn't work. This keeps falling off. How would we brainstorm new ideas to make it stronger? So it's a repetitive cycle all the way up until the competition. Another question is usually asked is, so this is 10 practices. You might need more than that. It's not unlikely to do maybe 12 to 15 practices before your first competition. And typically you're meeting maybe 1 day a week. And as you get closer to competition, you might be doing 2 or 3. This is hard to suggest, but I'm going to suggest it anyway. You kind of want to be done with building your robot 1 to 2 weeks before your first competition. Ideally, it'd be great if you just are driving your robot and no more building your first the week before competition. All right, this is a coaching example of what I think your robot team should be structured as. You should be a coach here with an assistant coach, and here's your team. So this is the ideal format. This is the most common format. You want to avoid this. Don't be the only coach. You need an assistant. So figure out who your assistant is. We can help brainstorm with you, or we can help recruit for you. This is what your team structure could look like. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I said it was a team of 6 to 8. What do my 8 kids do? I'm going to go through it quick. 1, builds the field, and they know all the rules. 2, a second person could be in charge of prototyping. They're just designing things off to the side that the research and design group finds. This is the YouTuber. The person who wants to be the YouTuber, they're researching on YouTube what robot designs exist, talking to the prototyper, and then once the prototyper comes up with a good concept, the builder who works on the robot builds it. Electrical, probably not really a realistic position, but there are going to be sensors that come in your kit. Most first-year teams are never going to use them, so that's probably a fake position. Programmer, this is real, and I think even though that this is your first year, I encourage all of your kids to program or get a programming team to program your robot. It won't break it. No, it won't break it. I always like thinking about that. I'm like, could they break it? No, they really can't break it. And you don't want to say that to them because then they'll try to figure out how to break it with programming. But no, you really can't break it with programming. So let them try it. Let them see what they can come up with. And there is a part of or an element of a competition where programming matters. And then a pit team is just in charge of the batteries, making sure that they're charged, making sure the area, the parts, and all the bins are clean. And then a PR would be like a website team, a logo for your team, a team name, a mascot, your T-shirts, all of that. So this is a more common structure, which is robot build, programming, field element scoring, and PR. This is probably the most common. A robot build team, a programming, and everyone else. This is what I told you earlier already. I think coaching, a coaching strategy you need to think of is robot design, which people want to spend 90% of the time doing, is equally but differently as important as driving. The drivers do need to figure out how to drive. I don't know if this was asked in the question. A lot of people say, how do you decide what your drivers are? You got a couple strategies. You can say everyone drives. You'll learn how it works. So at a competition, every match, there's 2 new drivers. So if you do elementary, middle, high school, you have 2 drivers. So you just rotate every 2 drivers. If there's 6 people on the team, you 2 drive, you 2 drive, you 2 drive. Next match, you 2, you 2, you 2. You have A, B, and C each team. Or you just figure out what are the kids that want to drive. Surprisingly, not everyone's going to want to be the quarterback of the team driving in front of an audience. So you might just have 4 drivers, 2 sets, an A team and a B team, and you just rotate. Odds, A team. Evens, B team. In every match, they just alternate. Or you just have 2 drivers and they drive every match. It's up to you. But the kids that are going to be driving a competition need to be driving at practice often and frequently. All right. Here's a lot of really cool resources that Jamie put together when she was a robot coach. This is an interactive little hyperlinked PowerPoint that has a lot of different useful tips. Click on it, play with this. She goes over what her expectations are for her team. This is everything that she goes over kind of at her first practice. Jamie, is there anything else that I missed that I wanted to say about this?
Nope, just you can download it, make a copy, and make it work for your team, for your program. But there's tons of resources there that you can use throughout the entire season.
Loads of stuff. And then she was helpful to like share parent presentation. I think it's important for you to have a presentation and expectations at a competition before they go to their first competition. Sample sponsorship letters, team requirements, and a student contract that she has her kiddos sign, tryout requirements. I mean, there's just a lot of great stuff here. So check this out. Very helpful. I don't really have time. I don't have time, but I'm going to try and squeeze this in. I'm going to talk very, very quick. This is my favorite team I've ever interviewed at a competition. I was at a world. I'm going to talk really fast here, so just bear with me, buckle in. I was at a world championship. I was the judge right here, and the judge's job is to go around and ask kids about their robot, and then they get awards based on their answers and responses. This particular year, there's 140 teams. I interviewed every single team, and at this competition, there were about 60 robots that were all identical. And then there was this one team right here that was in last place, and they had by far the worst robot design ever. It was supposed to pick up balls and dump into a hopper, and you can see right now their robot can hold 1, 2, 3 balls. Most teams could hold 20. This could hold 3. But what I liked about this robot, and in fact, I gave them a judged award that goes to a team for a unique robot design or for the ability to communicate that doesn't fit into any other categories, is because these 2 kiddos were brother and sister. This kiddo was the kid next door. This was a neighborhood team because their school didn't have a robotics team. They're in New Jersey. The dad was an accountant, didn't know anything about building or construction. He bought them a kit, bought them a field, and in their basement, they built this robot on their own based on things they saw at a field trip when they went on a tour of an assembly line. And they had a rack and pinion gear. They were like second, I think this kid, I don't remember exactly. I feel like this kid was like a 2nd grader, this was a 3rd grader, and this was a 4th grader. We'll just say that for simplicity reasons. And this kid's like, do you know what a rack and pinion gear is? I knew, I went to Purdue, so of course I knew what it is. But a rack and pinion, most of us probably don't know what that is. Yeah, that's an amazing thing. So I played down, I was like, no, what's a rack and pinion? He goes, a rack and pinion gear is when you can take linear movement, like a rack, and translate an output of a rotational motor to make something go left and right, or in our vertical up and down. And I'm like, this kid just used the word linear, rotational. That's amazing. And then this girl was the programmer. This kid was talking about their crown gear, which was able to translate output of a motor to a 90-degree. They're talking about 90-degree or 45-degree angles to rotate an axle 90-degree. It was amazing. They were deserving of a design because they effectively worked together and can communicate most effectively of all the students I interviewed about their robot. I know they designed this. They were polite. They looked me at the eye, and look here in the background. No parents, no coaches. They did this on their own. So this is what I want every Indiana team to look like and to be like. I want them to be able to work together, communicate together. They each have a role. They built this robot. They didn't necessarily score the most amount of points. They are not going to make it to, they've made it to world because I think there were only 10 teams in their state. So they were the best of the 10 teams in their state. So this is what I am proud of when I talk to Indiana teams that can communicate effectively how their robot works. So anyway, short stories. Usually I talk a lot longer, but here's the fun part. Gosh, Jamie, I'm 15 minutes behind. I'm going to go into turbo mode. This is the fun part. Are you guys still alive? You guys good with me? All right. Yeah. Monday afternoon, and we still have energy. All right, here we go. This is the fun part. Every year there's a new game, and the game is what you're going to have for the entire year. So if you're elementary and middle school, this is your game. If you're VRC, you'll have a different game. I'm not going to go over it today. I think Jamie already gave you instructions on what you're doing. So elementary, middle school teachers, VEX IQ coaches, here is your game. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th game. What you can see is common is the field each year is the same, but the games and elements on the inside and how you score points is different. That's why every year you need to design a new robot. So this is this year's robot, and I could tell you this is probably one of my favorite games, and I'm not just saying it because it's this year. I told you there's a slide that shows you everything we get. Jamie, everything in the screen is what we give them in the grant, right? For this year. What sucks is if you got our grant last year, you're going to see what we're giving this year, and I think there's more included because we didn't have much money last year because it was COVID and it was a really tough financial year. So I apologize if you got our grant last year, but this year, this is what you get. I'm going to play the video. It's about 3 minutes long. I think and hope, Jamie, you'll have to give me a thumbs up that it will play. I didn't do a sound check. If it doesn't, I'm going to do the narrating for us. But I'm going to click on here. I wonder if I'm going to get a YouTube ad. Oops. I'm going to click here. Nope. Okay, I'm going to click here. This is it. Can you hear anything, Jamie? All right, I'm going to unplug my audio. I'm going to turn on, and we'll try it now. IQ challenge, pitching it. Did the audio go out?
It was there for a minute and then it went away.
Oh no. All right, I will narrate this. How about that? Can you hear me talking?
Yes.
All right, I'm going, Jamie and I will have to do this together maybe. I plugged in my headphones. Can you use new hardware? Jamie, can you hear me still?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so this is the field, and there's basically 4 different ways to play. There's going to be balls on the side of the field that you can clear off, that you get points. There's ways to get the ball on the inside of the goals here, and there's ways to shoot balls into this hopper here, and then the 4th way, and I'm going to go over each of these with graphics, where you can hang on either the low or high bar. So that's kind of what's happening here. They're shooting that. They're pushing that. That's for 2 points. The ones in the hopper and the bin here are 6 points. And getting all the balls off the side of the wall over here is worth, I think, 5 points. Hey, 5 points. And then at the end of the match, if you can hang on this low goal, it is worth, look at that hold, 6 points. And if you can hang on the top goal where you're above the low goal, this is worth mega 10 points. So you only have 1 minute to score as many points as you can with another robot. So this is kind of the beauty behind robotics, is that you get to compete with other teams from different schools. So they're going to show you now. There's 3 different ways to play, or 2 different ways. 3, 2, I forget. 3? What is it? It's teamwork challenge, autonomous. What am I missing? Oh, the 2 different ways in autonomous. All right, I don't think these graphics are going to do us any good here. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry guys. I wasn't planning on narrating this, so I don't think I'm doing a great job. But let me explain what they're doing. So there's 3 different ways to play. Teamwork challenge is 2 drivers, and 1 robot, 2 drivers and robots. So 2 total robots, 4 total kids. On your mark, get set, go. They have 1 minute to score as many points as they can. After 30 seconds, they have to hand the remote over to the second driver. So that gets both kids to drive in that 1 minute time. The other kind of way to play is called skills driving. And this is autonomously operating or programming your robot without any human or without any remote control. So they're probably going to cross out that remote. I thought they would. Maybe they said, and no remote control, and then it disappeared. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, there it is, no remote control. So there are 2 ways to operate. One is with driver skills and programming skills. And we'll go into more depth on that here in a second. So sorry the video didn't play. I'll do better testing next time. But I'll break this down. If you guys have any questions, throw it in the chat. But here's 3 ways to score. I'll show you the 4th on the next slide. So at the beginning of the match, your robots are going to start on opposite sides of the field. So either here or here. And there's going to be balls on the left side and on the right side. And so you'll see how these competitions work and the structure of them all. So if you were to just clear, this is why I said if you have a robot that can move, you can score points. If you were just to literally bump into all of these balls and get them out of that yellow zone, you get 5 points. So you can get 5 points of running across and just pushing them out of the way, and then go on the other side of the field, push those away, you just got 10 points. And then if you got lucky, maybe you can just smash these balls or bump these balls into this corral here. If you could just bump them in there, you get 2 points for every one. And then this is a little more complicated, is if you have a robot that can pick up the balls and shoot them into the bin, you get 6 points. And then the last way is at the end of the match, when the buzzer dings, if you are hanging on the bar, not touching the ground, you get 6 points. And if you're hanging above the bar, and you have to be above the lower bar, you get 10 points. So just hanging up, and that little fling robot does all 3 of these. It can push, it can shoot, and it can hang on the lower goal. I don't think Jamie can hang on the high goal. No, she says no. All right. So this is kind of an example. In your starting position, when I said the robots are on opposite sides, you can actually start this year in 4 different zones. You can start here, 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 or here. And why you might start on a different zone than the other is before the match, I'm going to say my elementary was Elm Road, and Jamie taught at New Palestine. So I'm Elm Road over here, and New Palestine's over here. So my kiddos would talk to New Pal and say, hey, New Pal, what is your robot going to do? They're like, all right, we push these balls in the center, and then we hang on the skull. And then Elm Road is sitting over here saying, oh, okay, well, we take all these balls on this wall, and we push them into the center. And if we have time, we'll go over here. So if that's the case, this zone might be a good starting position, and then maybe for them starting the center here because they push these balls in. So anyway, that's why you have options depending on the strategy and how you'll play with the other team. We talked about communication and collaboration. What a wonderful skill for kids from different schools, different backgrounds, having to communicate with other kids. The beauty behind it at the World Championship is you got kids from different countries that might not even speak English. Like, that's an amazing experience for kiddos to be able to overcome communicating both visually and verbally with kids that don't actually speak the same language as them. So that's just a really, really neat aspect to robotics. So that's, I think, it. There's one more slide, sorry, about the game, which just kind of shows these balls pushed past this black line count for the 5 points. This ball, as long as it crosses the plane, counts for the 2-point goal. You can see it's inside that 2-point. And then they treat this top as a cylinder. So you can see this ball's not fully in it, but it's breaking this cylinder. So that counts as well. So that's a 6-point. All of these balls would be count as 6 points. You can see right here, this does not count because all these balls are still in that zone. This obviously, I don't even know why they put this as an example. Of course, this doesn't count. It is not inside the goal. So that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about for scoring. There is about a 25, 27-page game manual that goes in much more detail. That's where all these graphics came from. That's where you can find the video and play it on your own. But honestly, like, you should know it the rules roughly, but if there's a real difficult question, your kiddos need to look it up. So, you know, when they say, hey, how do you spell thesauruses? You say, look it up. Go get a dictionary and look it up. How do you spell dictionary? Look it up. That's what they should be doing with this manual. And they say, hey, what happens if a ball goes out of bounds? I don't know, look it up. Like, they need to know where to look this up in the manual. Jamie just posted it in the chat. Thanks, Jamie. All right, in the chat, I'm just kind of curious, how many of you ever been to a robot competition? Just go quick. I have or I have not. Been to a robot competition? I have not. I have. Yes. Ooh, a lot of people have. That's awesome. It's great. A couple knots. Oh, Brian's hosted one. Awesome. Have not. All right. So this is really kind of for those that have not been to a competition. I just wanted to be, I'll say out of the bat, if you remember a stress graph, when you walk into a robot competition, you're kind of like, oh my, like it's overwhelming. They're typically held in a gymnasium or a cafeteria or an auxiliary gym of a school. And so this is an example of a competition in the gymnasium. You got all the kiddos sitting down here. You got the parents in the bleachers. You got the fields up front up here. You got a scoreboard that has a timer. You can kind of see the ranking back here. This one's a little more hectic. This is probably like opening ceremonies, and this is like what it actually looks like, so it doesn't look as organized and formal as this one. You can see the timer here. Sometimes, like this one has 4 fields, this one has 2 fields. So sometimes there'll be 2 fields or going on at the exact same time, and then they'll switch to these 2 fields. So sometimes what field you're on isn't always the same, it rotates. And then another complicated thing that I'm going to explain is that every robot team is given a pit area. And the easiest way I explain this is like if you ever watch Indy 500 or NASCAR, they have a pit area where they work on their race car. They go in the pit, they change out tires, and they go race more. When you go to a competition, you're going to have 8 matches. So maybe match 1 and 2 go great, but then all of a sudden your battery's getting low or a wheel fell off. So you need to go back to your pit, kind of like your home base throughout the entire day, where you can go and fix things. So you'll bring all your extra parts in here. You can leave your jackets and coats in here. You probably don't want to leave your laptop unattended, but you can have your batteries charging here. This is your home base. And then when you go to when your match is up, you go over here to the field and you come back to home base. So let's say this is my team, that's home base. This home base typically at a school, competition is usually held in the gym, and the home base is usually held in the cafeteria. So those might be a hallway far away. That's usually why I say when you go to competition, you want to have an assistant coach and or parents there helping you. You don't want to go to a competition alone. You are setting yourself up for a disaster because you'll have kids at the pits, you'll have kids in the stand, you'll have drivers. So you'll need a lot. And then there's skills, and we'll talk about skills here in a second. So here's an example of what's going to happen when you get to a competition. In the morning, they'll give you a match schedule. For this, just an example here, we're going to pretend we're team 22222D. Each of you should have already been assigned a team, which is a series of numbers and a letter. Usually the letter represents what team it is. So for example, 3413A, A is their first team. If they have a B, that's their second team. So 2222D, to me, that is their ABC or team they have at the school. So that's something to think of. But what you do when you get your match schedule is highlight all of your teams. So I'm 222, there's 222D, 222D, there's 222D, and one more. So they usually, this is just an example to fit a lot on one page. Usually they're not going to be back to back. Usually they're 10, 15, maybe even 30 minutes apart. You go to you highlight them all. And so the first match, we're going to be with 984829A. Next match, I'm going to be with 6471D. Sometimes, and these are all random. So sometimes you're going to be paired up with a team that's good. Sometimes you're going to be paired up with a team that's bad. For your first competition, you're going to be the team that's bad all the time. So they're going to look at it, and hopefully they're not going to look at it like, oh no, we're paired up with 2222D. This is the team that's brand new and they're no good. Hopefully they'll be welcoming and inviting and supportive. But anyway, that's the great thing. That's why sometimes our first year teams will make it all the way to the finals, because every match they're paired up with a really good team. So I mean, sometimes maybe our kids, your kiddos will surprise us all, and they'll be all great, and you'll earn your way to the finals. So anyway, you'll get 8 matches. They drop the lowest 2. So every 4 matches, they drop the lowest 1. You can always, if you have a bad match, you can always tell your kids, you can do this twice. You can always tell your kids that one will be thrown away. So here's how I'm going to explain the difference between teamwork challenge and robot skills. And this is a way to get more kids on your team involved. Teamwork challenge is what I just described. You'll get 8 matches. It's 2 robots on a field together. And then the next match, it'll be your robot and a different team. And then the next match, your robot and a different team. You get 1 minute to score as many points you want in the game I described. That's the teamwork challenge. Then there'll be finals, and there'll be awards based on that. But then there's this whole separate thing called skills challenge. And I encourage you all to do it. It doesn't hurt your ranking on the teamwork challenge. If you have a bad skills challenge, it doesn't impact your teamwork. But what skills challenge is it's just your robot on the field playing the same existing games. It's the way to eliminate being paired up with a bad partner, because it's really just you against yourself to see how many points you can get in a minute. And there's a robot skills challenge, which is driving, and there's a programming skills challenge, which is just your robot programmed to score as many points as it can. So this is why I say you can involve more students. Some kids don't want to be driving that remote in front of a big audience and crowd. So they prefer to be silent off to the side on the skills. This is a great way to get those shy, intimidated, discouraged kids to still be involved. And on the programming, your programmers sometimes are the ones that are also shy and reserved. They don't want to be in front of a big audience, so they might want to do programming skills. So anyway, if you have any more questions or I missed anything about that, ask away in the chat. I'll go over a few other things. This is an example of a skills challenge. Here's looks like a team of girls on a pink lightning team and Mary Castle Robotics. This is a teamwork challenge. There's 2 robots. You can't see the second one's back right here. There's 2 robots. There's 2 teams. You can see driver one. After 30 seconds, he's going to hand it to him. After 30 seconds, she's going to hand it to her. You get 1 minute, score as many points as you want. Now, this is at Lucas Oil Stadium on the football field in front of an audience of like 10,000 people. This is huge. Now, skills is over by our cafeteria. We rope it off, so parents have to be way off to the side. And this is a very low stress environment where you can see they're doing a skills challenge. You can tell because there's only 1 robot on the field. And since they don't have any remote, they're doing what kind of challenge? The programming skills challenge. So there is no remote in their hand. This is operating on its own autonomously. So that's teamwork challenge, skills challenge. All right, I'm gonna go fast here. A lot of people ask, well, how do the points work when you're paired up with someone else? So I'm gonna give an example. Oh, I already went too fast. Let's pretend we're team 1. So in team 1, our first round, we're paired with team 2. We got 20 points. Awesome. We both get 20 points. And then in round 2, team 1's paired with team 3. How do we do? Ooh, we got more points. Team 3 must be pretty good. So in the overall ranking, we're team 1. We got 20 points round 1, 30 points round 2. We have a total of 50 points. Oh my goodness, we're in first place. Awesome. And you can kind of see team 3, they're doing pretty good. They are maybe the second best team. We're the first best team. That's how ranking works, is every round you're going to get the same score as your alliance. And then next round, and then you start over. Round 2, you're going to do that 8 times. You get a best of 8. They throw the 2 lowest scores away. So yeah, if I missed anything, because I'm talking so quick, you didn't understand something, ask it in the chat. This is an example of a competition agenda. They usually start around 8:30. You check in and get your robot inspected. We'll talk about what that looks like. But this is to verify that your robot can fit in an imaginary box. You don't have more motors than you're allowed to have. You don't have more batteries than you're allowed to have, which is 1. And the robot turns on and moves. That's what they're inspecting. Every team should pass inspection. So it sounds scary, but every team should pass inspection. And then they usually have practice. You can go in the fields and practice. Opening ceremonies, they'll just kind of go over logistics, where bathrooms are, what awards they're going to hand out. They'll kind of go over like, hey, let's be nice. Parents, don't be jerks. Parents will ask you to leave if you're jerks. Usually it's the parents, the ones that are the jerks. Don't let your parents be jerks. And then teamwork matches, skills matches are from 10:30 to noon, usually have lunch. Sometimes you can have concession food. Sometimes you can bring in food. Sometimes you can order pizza. And then they have more teamwork matches. And then finals, you're out by the afternoon. So 8 to about 3:30 is a typical competition. Anywhere from 16 to 30, 40 teams. Usually competitions, I'd say around the 24 to 30 range. Big events are in the 40 to 60 range. Not too many of those in the state. All right, Jamie, I don't know if we have time to show this, but I'm going to go over some other things. And if we do, I'll come back to this video because we only have 25 minutes left. So I'll come back to that video if we have time. It's a pretty cool video. All right, general rules. 1 minute before a match, or you have 1 minute in a match, 2 drivers, rotate the drivers between 25 and 35 seconds. I say 30, you technically have a buffer here. You're going to hear a buzzer, or your kids will hear a little da-da-da. Wait, what's it sound like? Ding, ding. I think it just sounds like that. It goes ding, ding at 35 and then ding, ding at 25. And your kids have to hand the remote off in between that. Jamie, is that the right sound? Ding, ding. Yeah, something like that. You're going to have 1 robot brain, 6 motors. But here is the most important thing. If you guys are, I'm starting to lose people. But Jamie, I see you. I've got 2 Jamies. Jamie Inskeep already knows. Jamie Ellis. It's the only face I can see. So Jamie, make sure, I like your little pig thing in the background. That's cute. Nicole, make sure you pay attention to this. Your robots can only be 11 inches by 19 by 15. So at the start of the match, it needs to fit in an 11 inch by 19 inch. That's 19 wide, or 19 long by 11 wide, and 15. Once the match starts, it can expand to 19, but it has to imaginary start in a 15. So just think, if you had an imaginary box that was 11 by 19 by 15, that's what your robot has to fit in. Once the match starts, it can extend up to 19. Am I saying that right, Jamie? They mix it up every year. Jamie's the expert. I'm saying that right? All right, good, good, good. Why I say this is so important is your kids have to measure this while they're building. I can't tell you how many competitions, even at state, where they should be so refined, we get to the state championship, they measure their robot, and it's 21 inches. And we're like, guys, 21 inches here or 21 inches in Peru, Indiana is the exact same 21 inches. So if it didn't work in Peru, it's not going to work in Indianapolis. So you have to make sure they measure. And the 11 inches on your ruler should be the same 11 inches as my ruler, so they can measure this at home or at school before they come to competition. So make sure they measure. That's 11 by 19 by 15. Once the match starts, it can extend 4 more inches up to 19 if it wants. Fling fits in this confined box. Okay, if you don't understand this, don't get it, feel free to ask us. We can go over that in more detail. There's even videos of an inspection of what it looks like. All right, sign up for a competition now. If you see a competition available in your area, I'm telling you, sign up for it now. They're going to fill up very quick here in September and October. We asked all the coaches, what's the #1 advice you'd give a new team? And this is it right here. Go to more than 1 competition. If you are in an area that you have access to go to 2 competitions, do it. Even if it's $40 and it's going to be $80 total, sign up for 2 competitions. You will not regret it. And I'm not going to go over it today, but you can click on this video and I walk through in a how-to tutorial. We're not going to watch that commercial. A how-to tutorial on how, that's not the right one. Did I click on the wrong one? No, that's it. I don't know what that was, Jamie. No, that's right. How to register for a VexIQ event in Indiana. So this is how to register for an event. So follow that, sign up for a competition ASAP. All right, I'm basically done. I have 20 minutes left. I told you I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the kit of parts. I'm going to show you a few things though about it. So I'm not going to get the parts out. I'm not going to show you everything. I'm going to show you on the screen. If you don't have the parts in front of you, don't stress out. Don't worry about it. Oh, Jamie Ellis, I just realized you're wearing a Purdue Boilermaker shirt. Good for you. You get extra points. This is a YouTube video when you want to get more familiar or you want to show your kids like what is in the robot kit. Follow this video. I was watching it this morning. Jamie, I made this in 2017 and still everything in here applies. So I was pretty in tune back then. So this is me literally opening up the box. Gosh, I had more hair back then too. Opening up the box. It's a blue box. Check it out. Like this is it's a 30-minute video. That's why we're not going to spend time on it now. But I go through every single thing all the way to even pairing your brain with your remote, turning it on, what the lights mean, what these different sensors mean, how to charge it. I even go over the different sensors in here. So anyway, check out that video. I'm not going to do it today. I am going to show you just a couple things. This is your Vex IQ Super Kit. So if you got a kit last year, you should try to track this down in your building. I know some of you are teachers that took over a teacher that left, or you're in a new building or school. Check it, track down that Vex IQ Super Kit. It should be sitting in a blue box or this clear box. Inside of it, there is a nice little wall poster. The nice thing about this wall poster, it gives the actual names of all the parts, and it's a true scale 1-to-1. So meaning, if they're looking for this part right here, they could actually, in the instructions and manual, it says to grab a 4x15 or whatever. They could take the piece up to here and see if it's the right spot or the right size, the right gear, whatever it is they're looking for. So great little thing to throw on your wall. Organize your bin. I've seen people do, if you have label makers, which are one of the coolest toys in the world, put label makers for spacers and metal axles and sensors and gears, whatever. Put them on there if you want, and then have a kid in charge of, or print this off and have it next to the storage bin. Have a kid in charge of the organization of your bin. This is something Jamie kind of tracked down. I think Jamie did this, her team. I was not this organized, but if you're an organized teacher, get one of these little rolling carts. They get them at hardware stores, or maybe you guys have one in your building, or just a projector cart. Is that what these are? I feel like you put TVs and projectors on here. I'm going to call it a projector cart. And put your bins in here so the kids can wheel it out to their table and then organize it back and wheel it back into the closet, whatever it might be. This is with the remote. This is what I was talking to you about, that the kids know how to use these. So once you build a robot, the beauty behind Vex IQ and VRC is you turn this on and it starts working. You can start driving it right away. This is the brain. This is the most expensive thing in that kit. So this is what you don't want your kiddos dropping. The remote is probably the second most expensive. A little bit more durable. You can drop it a couple times, but 5 times that thing's probably going to break. So don't want to drop it so many times. But anyway, this is where the battery is going to go in. This is how to turn it on and off. Your kiddos will figure this out. There's a manual that walks you through this. My video walks you through it. That's why we're not going to go over it tonight. There is a smart radio that's already installed in both your brain and your, it's in your brain. Sorry, wrong way. It's already installed on your brain on the back of the remote. Do not pull it out. You do not want to take the radio out. There's no reason for you to take the radio out. So don't ever take it out. Another thing is, if you do think you're going to buy more than one kit, label the brain and the remote. So call this A and A. And if you get a second kit, call it B and B, because the worst thing is going to a competition and having having a remote that's driving the wrong robot. And that's really stressful for the kiddos. So you want to pair the brains and the remotes, make sure they don't get mixed up. This is the battery. This is probably one of the only consumable products in your robot. I've had coaches tell me that these things have lasted them about 2 or 3 years. Once you start getting competitive, you'll probably want to start getting a new battery each year. But I typically have 2 or 3 at a competition. I usually call it a practice battery, and then I have 2 competition batteries. That's me. If you have the money, great. If not, 1 battery is going to be great for this year. If you have the money, they're about 20 bucks, and these are consumables. The more you use it, the more, it's just like a cell phone battery. It's just at the end of the season, it's not going to hold as good of a charge. And what that means in robotics is your robot might be not as fast and as powerful. And what sucks is at the end of the season is state and worlds. So that's why you kind of have fresh batteries. You do have a battery inside your remote control. I have a 6-year-old battery in my kitchen that still works. So I don't know why I have that in my kitchen, but I do. This is your charging station, charging cable. This is how you charge it. I'm not going to go over that. This is all in the manual. One little helpful tip, these are called smart cables. They look just like telephone cables, but this is a tip I heard from a coach. Kids don't have telephones in a wall at their house anymore, so they don't know how to use these. So they just yank them out, but there's a little plastic tab you got to push. So teach the kids how to use a telephone cable, and then tell them how you used to have one back in your day. These are smart motors. You'll have 4 of them. The only thing I was going to mention on this is they're greasy when they're brand new. That's okay. It's just a lubricant that they have on them, so don't freak out if you get a little oil on your hands. These are like the Legos. These are what you're going to build your robot out of. And these are the little pegs, like Legos, that snap together and hold the parts together. These are corner pieces. These are spacers or standoffs. These are axles. One thing I'd point, there's metal axles, and then there's plastic axles. If you can, 9 times out of 10, you want to use the metal axles. If the instructions say plastic, okay, you can go that route, but if you can get away with the metal, that's better. It's just more robust and solid. But one thing I would point on the plastic is that these plastic have, some of them have no stopper on the end. Some of them have a stopper at the end, and some of them have a stopper a quarter of the way down. So just keep an eye on the different axles. Nothing's worse than building the whole robot and finding out that you were supposed to use this axle and not this axle. Now you got to try to get to that middle part. Gears look different than pulleys. Gears have teeth. Pulleys are round. You probably don't even need to put this in your kit. You'll never use these, but maybe you will. But I really don't think you'll ever use these. Here's your different sensors. Here's a touch sensor. Here's a LED light sensor. You can touch it and start your competition, or start your robot. This is a distance sensor. These you'll never probably use for a very, very long time until you get really competitive. But these are to tell you how far away you are from something. This is to tell you the rotation of your robot. So if you want to turn perfectly 90 degrees, the gyro sensor would help you determine that. Color sensor, this is way, 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 way too complicated, and this year it doesn't even matter. But some years, like the ring year, there were red, green, and blue rings to score, and if you could sort them out, you got more points, and a color sensor would help you with that. You don't need to worry about this. One thing I would say, out of the box when you turn on the remote, it is tank drive, and the kids, it takes them a while to figure that out. If they read the manual, it'll tell them. But what that means is 2 remote controls forward goes forward, 2 remotes backwards goes backwards. It's basically like a lawnmower that has a 0 turn radius. So if you hit both of them forward, you go forward. If you do this, you'll go one way or the other. So this is the default out of the box how your robot will work. More YouTube videos that go over everything that I just covered. Here's the 2 manuals I was talking about. One's the Clawbot. You can almost throw this away or just keep this in a filing cabinet under rainy day. This is a manual that goes over all the different parts that I just discussed, and all the graphics I pulled are from this manual. And here's a highlight of things to look at. I already went over this. These are all the different builds. The fling is the one you want to do. So when you get your kit, you're going to get these. Don't build this Clawbot. That's what comes with the kit, because anyone can buy this kit. But fling on the website, you can click on it here, or it's on YouTube, or it's on Vex's website, which I don't know where it is, but it's one of my tabs. I clicked on it earlier. This fling is the one you want to build. All right. And I said early in the presentation, do not start over when your kids are redesigning. So build fling, but if they want to redesign it, don't take it past the drive base. That's the wheels that operate. Now, some coaches are going to really disagree with me. I'm getting a little conflicted on what to tell you, because the drive base in this particular year is wide and different than it has been in any years they've ever done. They always have the wheels close together, and you really can't tell. They're very wide apart this particular year. So most years I say don't ever take it apart past the drive base. Keep it at the drive base. Modify any of the appendages, or this, it looks like they have a little collection device here. Looks like, you know what, Jamie? I just noticed, I think they're using a pulley this year, and I said you'll never use a pulley, and they have a pulley in here. So there, I just ate my words. I think that's a pulley. Don't get rid of that pulley because apparently you use it this year. All right, that is it. I finished 10 minutes early. I don't know how in the world I did that. If anyone has any questions, throw them in the chat. Since I have you for 2 hours, and since we gave you a grant worth $1,000 worth of equipment, I think I am going to keep you all the way. You're gonna get your money's worth. How about that? So I am gonna queue up this video. If you guys have any questions, I'm gonna look over in the chat while this gets queued up, and I'm gonna end on this video. This is a well worth it video, I think. Any questions? All right, looks like there's no question. All right, so I'm not gonna play this whole 4-minute video, but here's what you need to know about it. Every year I say, first year teams aren't gonna necessarily make it to state or worlds. This is a 2nd-year team, and the kids that are driving are 1st-year students. This is a team in Napanee, Indiana. Is anyone in the Napanee area? Andrea is? Very cool. Are you in actually Napanee? Goshen, you said? I think I read your lips. Where are you from? Warsaw. Very cool. I'm from Mishawaka, if that counts.
Yeah.
My parents still live there. So Napanee, Indiana, if you've never been, is known for Amish. And Amish, you may or may not know, do not typically have electricity or running water. Definitely they do not have internet. So this team you're about to see has students that do not have internet technology in their homes, and yet they're on a robotics team that make it to the world stage. There's 12 teams that competed in the finals, and only 2 of them were from America. And those 2 teams, this has never happened before, happen to be at the same school in Napanee, Indiana that got our grant in 2016. So why I show this, and you're going to see they're going to do some commentating. I'm prepping it. Why I'm showing this is not because of the fact they made it to the World Championship. It's not because they're on the final stage, and if they win this match and they do everything as they should do and they have done before, they're going to win the World Championship. Why I show this is it goes back to what Jamie and I really want to see in Indiana, in every Indiana team, is what we call gracious professionalism. We're trying to teach these kids to become good, young professionals that go into society and do something good and positive. And it all starts at a robot competition when they're interacting with other people. And so when I saw this competition, at the end of it, I'm not going to reveal what happens, but the coach emailed me or texted me afterwards and was like, man, I can't believe it. I'll stop right there. I'll let this talk. I'll let this video, I'll commentate it. Oh, sorry, my wife just texted me. So they're the blue team. The Napanee team is the blue team. They're scoring and stacking these hubs into the corner. They've collaborated together to say this team from China needs to collect them and score them on this hub, these hubs in the corner over here. Now, here's where it's all going to go downhill. At the end of this match, you get more points for removing this yellow hub, scoring it on here, and hanging on the bar, just like this year. But the Chinese team is going to make a crucial error that's never happened in the time that these 2 have played in the finals together. And it's going to all go tumbling down. And then I want you to keep an eye on what this girl does at the end of the match. Here we go. Go get the yellow hub. Uh-oh. All right, I'm going to go get the yellow hub. Uh-oh. And they're not going to get enough points. They didn't score the yellow. They knocked over the tower. At this moment, the kids realized I could have won the world championship if I got that, and they scored that properly, but I did not win the world championship because of the mistake the Chinese team made, and here's what the girl does. High five, and bam. I call it the high five heard around the world, because this is what Jamie and I want every Indiana team to model themselves after. Not to make it to the world championship, not to be the highest scoring team, but in their worst moment, They don't throw a fit. They don't throw the remote on the ground. They don't get mad at the team that made the mistake and cost them the world championship. No, they high five them. They say thank you. They say good job. They understand they're humans and they make mistakes. They're not robots. The robot's a robot, but they're not. And they make mistakes and they're okay with it because that's life. And I think we can all learn. This was supposed to get into philosophical, political, but I feel like we can all learn a little bit something here, that we all make mistakes. We're not all perfect. We all can accept each other. And that's what I love about robotics. It forces kids to work and collaborate together in a very, very fun environment. So that's all I have for you. I guess I'm gonna, Jamie needs to make a record and note that I ended 5 minutes early, Jamie. Never done that before. But hey, I just want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank you all so much for taking the leap of faith to be a robotics coach. Yes, every single one of you can be a robotics coach. We have said time and time again, and I didn't say this stat in the beginning, that over 95% of our coaches have never coached a robotics team before becoming a robotics coach. Elementary, middle, high school. So you're not alone in saying, I've never done this before, I don't know what I'm doing. This is very, very common. Not being nervous, being hesitant, not understanding how to coach. That's what we're here for. So survive your first year, get your kids to build a robot, go to a competition, and everything is going to start falling into place. Jamie, is there any other closing words you wanted to add before we sign off?
I don't think so. I think you did an excellent job, and if you guys need anything, please don't hesitate. You're not bothering us by asking. That's what we're here for. We want to help you. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need us.
We both have our cell phones in our signature, so you guys can call us. Don't abuse that, because then we're going to start flagging you and avoiding your calls. But please use us. That's what we're here for. We want to make sure your first year is successful. I know you guys have a lot on your plate, a lot of challenges. So I hope robotics doesn't become a challenge. I hope it becomes a good experience for all of you. So I hope to see you at a competition. Maybe I'll see you at state. If you don't make it to state, please attend. It's free to attend. So please still come down to Indy, make a trip, come to Lucas Oil Stadium. Maybe we'll even see you in Dallas at World. So have a good rest of the year. Nice to meet you all. Thank you very much. Let us know if you guys have any questions. Jamie, I felt like there was a couple notes I asked. Did you get those? I was like, let's add that to the follow-up. One was like the volunteer thing and then something else.
The STEM partners. But that's the one I got. So